Hi, welcome all. I'd like to welcome all on behalf of CORE for the session today. Our guest speaker today is Major Shakti Brother Bose. He's served, he's had extensive experience of 31 years. He's served the Indian Army for 11 years. And then for the past 20 years, he has been consulting, auditing, training on information security, IT services, quality process, quality and process alignment to various standards of requirement. You can see his qualifications right on the screen. And I'd like to bring on Major Bose now. Major Bose, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So nice of you for your introduction. A warm welcome to all of you. Today, we are here for this webinar and look forward to a meaningful session for everybody. The webinar is on big data and compromise of personally identifiable information and relating it to understanding the needs of ISO 27001 with ISO 27701. This webinar will focus on holistic understanding of PII with respect to big data, data theft, and provisions of ISO 27701 to counter and safeguard data. We are going to look ahead to some case studies, understanding personal data, big data and threats, legislations and PIMS, and we will have a 10 minutes Q&A session. I have a question for you. There was a theft in a shop in your neighborhood. You are not aware of the theft, like every day you cycle past the shop. You get a message from Google informing you that they will share your data with police. Do you think there is a violation of your privacy? Your response is important for us. Please do respond. I see a lot of inputs coming in the chat window. Request all of you to respond at the earliest. Can we can we please put everybody on mute? Do we have some analytic input, please? So you see the trend is almost 80% feel yes, around 10% feel no, and 10% feel don't know. Please sit back and think, is it what you perceive or what the legislation of the place where you stay actually has some laws to this respect? Do you think your timeline data is shared? We all have our timelines in Google location enabled whenever we move around using location services. Let's look at a scenario where a man was riding past a house where a theft had taken place. Google had tracked his bike. If you are innocent, that does not mean you cannot be at a wrong place at the wrong time, like going on a bike in which your GPS puts you in a position where police suspect of a crime you didn't commit. The photograph is of McCoy, an avid cyclist. He got an email from Google's legal investigation support team to let him know that the local police had demanded information related to his Google account. He had 7 days in which to appear in a court if he wanted to block the release of that data. McCoy's device had been located near the scene of the theft that had taken place near the route he takes to bicycle to his job. McCoy's learners learned Google's notice had been prompted by a geofence warrant. Geofence warrant, please note. One that swept up GPS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular connection of everyone near the scene of the crime. Geofence data demands are also known as reverse location searches. Investigators stipulate a time frame and an area on Google Map and ask Google to give them record of each and every Google user who was in the area at the time. When police find the device of interest, they ask Google for more personal information about the device owner, such as name, address, when they signed up for Google services, and which services, such as Google Maps, they used. Google location history is routinely shared with police. Detectives have used this as warrants as they investigate a variety of crimes, including bank robberies, sexual assaults, arson, murder, bombing. And it is not just Google. Fast Company, a magazine, reported court documents confirm that prosecutors have issued geofence warrants for data stored by Apple, Uber, Lyft, Snapchat, etc. So, your timeline data can be shared if there is a legal requirement, whether you like it or there is a privacy violation, but Google does have access. The Guardian talks about a scenario where Google records your location even if you tell it not to. Google wants to know where you go so badly that it records your movement even when you explicitly tell it not to do so. An Associated Press investigation found that many Google services on Android devices, iPhone, store location data even if privacy settings says it will prevent Google from doing so. With location history paused, some Google apps automatically store data stamped location without asking. A matter of concern. Here we are looking at a gentleman whose identity was stolen in Facebook. Social identity theft is not just limited to the world of spies, politicians, celebrities. Consider what happened to Alexander, the man in the picture, a man living in France who fell victim to an intricate identity theft scheme. His personal information, photos were stolen from his social media account and then used to create fake online identity. Alexander then became well known in Bulgaria as a rich, successful manager, landing top jobs at multinational corporations, including Airbus. He had a large online following that included journalists, politicians. Why would a criminal steal Alexander's online identity? The short answer is money. After waiting for years for trust to develop with Alexander's online followers, the alleged identity theft initiated a Ponzi scheme offering discounted flights through Facebook. The man behind the fake accounts was sparse. His online existence could only be traced back to Twitter. In the years that follow, Sparse would download pictures of Alexander, which were posted on his social media accounts, patiently concocting a glamorous lifestyle and engaged audiences around the world. Alex was landing top jobs at multinational companies, corporation firms, etc. Such an identity theft is actually very worrisome. Another question for you. You regularly wear a fitness band, Fitbit kind, as you wish to stay healthy. Do you think the insurance company has the right to access this data? Thank you so much to all of you who are responding. As the poll results come in, we can see most of you feel 66% feel no, around 25 to 30% feel yes, and around 8% of you are not sure. You say don't know. What do you think is the purpose of Fitbit collecting your data? Are they collecting it for your personal health purpose? Are they collecting it to do some predictive analysis and give you suggestions on how to keep your health better? Or can the predictive analysis be used with other data by other corporations and suggest something more? Or can it be given to legal or insurance entities? What comes in your mind troubles everybody. What is the definition of privacy? Where does it end? So we are now looking at two scenarios where Fitbit data have been legally used in court cases. The first is a BBC News and the second is a NBC News. The first, Karen, age 67, was found with a kitchen knife in her hand, suggesting that she had killed herself. Anthony, who denied murder, told police he had visited her for 15 minutes to drop off a pizza. Police say a fitness tracker she was wearing showed a significant spike in her heart rate, followed by a rapid slowdown at the time he was there. Karen's Fitbit Alta device showed a raised heart rate at a time that is 15:20 local time, whereas video evidence suggested Mr. Anthony was at her house. Mr. Anthony was arrested. The recording also showed that her heart rate increased before it stopped at 15:28, and Mr. Anthony left the place 5 minutes after that. Another similar scenario, a man was charged with murdering his wife after the police could build a case used on his wife, the victim's Fitbit data. The workout tracker showed that Connie, the lady, was moving around her house well after the time that her husband told police that a masked intruder shot her dead. A slew of other digital fingerprints, do note, other digital fingerprints, home alarm sensor, Facebook activity, cell phone records, went ahead to clearly indicate at what time the shooting had happened. Another interesting scenario. William was arrested and charged with criminal mischief on a Sunday evening after shooting down a $1,800 drone he claimed was spying on his teenage daughter's sunbathing. There is restriction on use of firearms and therefore he was arrested. William was later cleared of first-degree criminal mischief when a judge ruled that he had the right to shoot the drone as it was an invasion of his privacy. Privacy can take different angles. Understanding privacy, understanding legislations become very important. One of the initial debates on big data analysis is about a Forbes article about Target Corporation, an American retail corporation. Here, an angry man, a father, went into Target outside Minneapolis demanding to talk to the manager. He said, "My daughter got this mail. She is still in high school and you're sending her coupons for baby clothes and cribs. Are you encouraging her to get pregnant?" Target was using credit card data for payment of goods. Target opened a file to record credit card number, which it stuck to a virtual file, and began to fill that file with all sorts of information: purchase history, response to survey, call to customer helpline. Target also went ahead, most likely to buy data about ethnicity, job history, purchases one made, etc. Based on these, with the help of big data analysis and using algorithms, they go ahead and do predictive analysis. These are at times creepy situations. Why were we talking about these instances? Let us look at this layout and understand. Before we go ahead and analyze these situations, let me explain to you this diagram. PII can be from source A, source B, source C. One, for example, target directly at the shop, some data from some other source which is related to target's business, and certain data that they are buying. This data then goes into a big data analysis, which has an output. The output of the data is used by different threat agents or different organizations, and either they're used or misused. When misused, these are threats. Threats actually are only if they are violation of legislations. So understanding legislations become important because legislation change and therefore threat definitions change. And to implement these threat, one looks ahead to go ahead to 27701. Now, I would like to spend a little more time on this particular slide. So PIA from various sources are input to big data. The big data analysis is done using different technologies and algorithms. And the output is a predictive analysis. Many times, this output data is also known as profiling. The output data for certain purpose, which can be termed as use or misuse, depends firstly on who is using it. Do note there is an arrow for misuse to or corporations, employees, nation states, and government bodies. We will look into these issues and understand what is legislation and how it is taking it forward. If it is used by an organization, government body, legal entity, then it is generally considered as legitimate use. Today, even in this legitimate use, concerns of privacy versus national security are debated. Thank you. As nations question what are boundaries of security, when they encroach into privacy. When we look at corporates, organizations in the backdrop of applicable legislations such as GDPR, Australian privacy law, using these data is not considered illegal. Business houses such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Fitbit, etc. are generally safe as they take a consent to use data from the data subject based on privacy declaration. The consent for a purpose remains a gray area. Why gray? The reason is the purpose of use of data cannot or is not explicitly defined by data controller, that is, these business houses, Amazon, etc. Many times, the purpose is not read or not understood by the data subject. And to add to this, the purpose changes when data is profiled for a different intent, which the data subject is not aware of. Let's look at these in a little more detail. Not explicitly defined. What do you think can be a purpose for consent given to Google for using location data for photos? Or have you thought why you are deprived of using WhatsApp if you do not give permission, that is consent, for location, calendar, photos, etc.? You are therefore forced to give the consent because you would be forced to use WhatsApp on your business or your social environment. When the purpose is not defined, are scenarios, for example, where you use credit card for a retail store for making payment. At that time, your card detail and all other related data is captured. In the retail shop, they may ask you for your mobile number because of certain loyalty programs, etc. But you do not give a consent for use or misuse of your data. In addition, if you have your car parked in the basement, to redeem the cost, you give that token, which is scanned and your car number is linked to your data. Another thought, can this retail shop use your LinkedIn profile to understand your designation, age, job role, gender, along with data of your travel from travel portal, along with data from your air travel insurance, medicines purchased, and then predict to you likely choice of purchases, travel, insurance, medicines? Yes, these advertisements and these activities do happen. My question is, did you explicitly give consent for all of these? The answer is most likely no. The case study of Target that we saw,
صباح
a retail
الخير.
store, is of a similar
تمام.
analysis. We spoke about use and the gray area of definition and your perceptions of privacy. There is also the angle of misuse, and here lies a larger chunk of problem. When this data falls into the hands of cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, online social hackers, script kiddies, the connotation would be very different. The misuse of predictive analysis by threat agents like hackers can be for malicious purposes such as public humiliation, stalking, identity theft, and to target an individual for harassment, etc. The misuse types can rise out of social engineering attacks leveraging PII, identity thefts, phishing and pilfering PII, stolen PII and data breaches, identity thieves pilfering social networks. The case study of Facebook identity theft is one such example we looked at. Personal data. What constitutes personal data? Personally identifiable information is data which can be used to identify, locate, or contact an individual and includes information like name, date of birth, place of residence, credit card information, phone number, race, gender, criminal record, age, medical records, etc. Every organization stores and uses PII, be it information on their employees or customer. Even schools and universities store PII of the students, while hospitals will store for patient data. The name John Smith may not always be the personal data because there may be many individuals with that name. However, where the name is combined with other information such as address, place of work, telephone number, etc., will then constitute to be a personal data. Is your IP address PII data as per legislation?
والله ما عملت.
So we've got a fair amount of data coming in from almost 42, 13, and 7. 60% of the total attendees, where most feel it is yes, it is personal data. Some feel no, around 20%, 70% feel yes, and around 11% are uncertain. Do note the question is talking as per legislation, and privacy laws legislations have to be in place based on which one can go ahead and say yes or no. Many countries do not have legislations on PII. For us, we do have certain aspects defined in IT Act, but our Data Privacy Act is still pending to be made into, it's a bill. It is not yet passed as a law. In the European Union, when talking about cyber threats and possible security measures, the question arises, are IP addresses considered as personal data? Yes, at least for certain kinds of IP addresses, says the European Court, and they have ruled on it, saying that depending on circumstances, it is personal data. To the extent they have also ruled dynamic IP, not static, dynamic IP for certain circumstances, like with the ISP, is personal data. Interesting. Identification of a person. And this is a scenario which would be applicable in many areas. A person may be identifiable through direct or indirect means. Let's look at Tom, who buys coffee every morning before work at a corner cafe coffee day. Credit card purchase, cash purchase. If Tom pays with credit card, his card info makes him directly identifiable to the merchant, which means data on his coffee purchasing history. That is store location, date and time, amount paid, coffee preference. Personal data, thus entitling him to certain rights and certain protections. Now, if Tom pays with cash, he may still be indirectly identifiable if he redeems a targeted coupon that was emailed to his inbox at an email address which can be traced back to his name and then to other blogs of John, etc., or maybe different coffee blends, depending on where all he has data residing. Understanding of identification of a person becomes important based on scenarios. Another angle, indirect identifiers depend on surrounding circumstances to determine whether it qualifies as protected personal information. For instance, we expect the increasingly popular adoption of in-store Wi-Fi tracking technology to be deemed as identifiable. Let's understand this. Retailers use Wi-Fi scanners to listen to shoppers' smartphone as they walk in and around the store and collect data on variables such as device type, MAC address, whether the same device has been to the store before or not, repeat shopper versus new, in which section of the store does the shopper spend more time, and how many more people come in after a major TV ad or a campaign, etc. They are all identifications to an individual. So, when we looked at different data sources and analysis and output data, we therefore move ahead to understand a little more on use, misuse, and threats. Excuse me. Understanding of types of threats become important. These threats need to be identified as probable risks. One is worried of these risks as they may violate requirements of legislations depending on where you are and what legislation applies. The General Data Protection Regulation, the Australian Privacy Principles, the US Act, the Singapore Privacy Regulations, etc. Having identified the threats and applicable legislation to safeguard the road ahead would lead to implement ISO 27001, that is Information Security Management System, with ISO 27701, that is Privacy Information Management System, to safeguard an organization. These threats are a huge list of known threats across the industry, across the globe. These threats can be of nefarious activities. They could be threats of eavesdropping, hijacking. They could be threats of unintentional damage, loss of information to IT assets. They could be threats related to legal issues. They could be threats related to software as a service being adopted. Whether it is a malicious code or a software activity, whether PII can lead to denial of service. I don't like somebody's preferences. If I know the gentleman's or lady's user ID from PII, I can just make attempts of login and block his account. We can look at misuse of audit tools. All of these need to be evaluated and identified. How many of you log in and use mobile applications because of some purposes, which is software as a service? Most places, most societies, etc., now have something known as a MyGate application. Everybody who walks into my house is identified. There is no consent from either the visitor or the owner about MyGate using that data.
Answer for this question is 48.
Uh, can we put somebody on mute, please? So, having looked at these, is ISO 27701 a requirement standard, a guideline standard, a combination of requirement and guideline standard? What is your understanding? We've got around 35, 45, 50, 60 responses already. Around 70% of you feel it is requirement and guideline or are sure. 24% feel that it is a guideline standard and 10% a requirement standard. So all those of you who say it is a requirement and guideline, you are correct. A quick understanding, a requirement standard is where you are certified. An organization can be certified to 27701. All requirement standards are generally supported by guideline standards, like 27701 is a requirement standard, 27001, 27001 is a requirement standard, 27002 is a guideline standard. But there is a change here. This standard is a combination of requirement and guideline, and therefore it is a certifiable standard. Thank you all for your response. Now, having understood the threats, it becomes important to understand the legislations which are there and how one can go ahead and reduce The impact of legislation on organizations. One of the means is, of course, implementing 27701. Therefore, understanding of legislations is essential. Violations to GDPR can imply legal case and heavy financial penalty. The amount of penalty depends on the safeguards the organization have in place. These safeguards are built when an organization implement methods and process. ISO 27001, that is Information Security Management System, and ISO 27701, that is Privacy Information Management System, provide methods to safeguard organizations. So 27701 or GDPR look at concepts which are similar. There is something which is known as personal data. Any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person. Whereas PII is similar. Any information that can be used to identify the PII principle to whom such information relates. Then there is the PII principle and the data subject. PII principle is a natural person to whom personally identifiable information relates. There is a data controller or a PII controller and a data processor. The data controller or the PII controller, privacy stakeholder or privacy stakeholders that determine the purpose and means for processing identifiable information. For a simple understanding, a data subject gives the privacy consent to the data controller. The data processor may not directly interact with the data subject. The data processor processes data on behalf of the data controller. Many a time, the data controller and the data processor are the same entity. There are also concepts of joint controller when the data subject links directly with the data controller as well as the data processor. So when you buy a device, say you have bought a phone, a particular brand, you bought that brand phone from a particular company or a shop, say Chroma. They collect your data. They become the data controller. But when you want to get some servicing done at a service center, they become a joint controller because they also take your data. Then there is something known as personal sensitive data, and that relates to some kinds of data as per definition, which are linked to race, creed, ethnicity, etc. A lot of deliberation needs to be done by an organization through a privacy impact assessment or data protection impact assessment for assessing risks related to privacy. Here in this slide, we are just looking at the structure of ISO 27701. It is just to give you an overview of the structure. ISO 27701 is structured differently from other standards. It addresses PII mapped to 27001 and 27002. The standard is a requirements and guidelines standard. An organization needs to map all requirements to the type of PII and build processes for its safeguard. An organization can be certified to 27701. An added requirement is that the organization has to be certified to 27001 to be certified to 27701. An important information. This standard gives a mapping to GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, and therefore it is perceived that organizations certified to 27701 would be largely compliant with GDPR. Are you interested to join a training, ISO 27001 or 27701 and combined lead auditor training? Shall we connect with you on mail? We all thank you for responding. Thank you for attending. We shall get back to you for all those of you who want to want to know information about our trainings. We are sharing our virtual classroom and online examination schedule, a calendar, the immediate calendar in Jan and Feb. Please do contact us. Our contact details are here. We are also now going to take your questions. Questions are welcome.
So, Major Boss, there's a question that what if someone already is certified for ISO 27001?
Okay, thank you so much. If a company is certified to 27001, the company can go ahead and add on the certification of 27701, which focuses on privacy in addition to all security requirements. A company can go ahead for combined certification of 27701 and 27001. A company cannot go individually for 27701 without 27001. Yeah, any other questions, please?
Guys, any other question? Anybody wants to ask Major Boss?
Both sir, Aravind here.
Yes, please.
So I'm certified for ISO 27001 lead auditor course. So there is no, I could see there is a combination of 27001 and 27701. So there is no 27701 separate lead auditor training course.
That is also possible. We have not scheduled it here. If you have done 27701, it is possible. Do remember there is a small additional requirement. If you've done 27001 way back with 1911 as the earlier standard and not the 2018 standard, then auditing techniques also requires added knowledge.
Understood, sir. Understood. Okay.
Our company details are available at our website. Somebody's asked for it in Abu Dhabi. The address would be shared with you. Tarun, I'm taking on this question. Lead implementer training. Depending on market need, we will conduct 27701 lead implementer training. Do connect with us.
So we're nearly touching time now. You can send in your questions. Yes, Abhijit, we do. We'll come back to you. You can write to us on risk. If I would request everyone to switch on the cameras for a group picture, please, if possible. Everybody, please. This is a big webinar. We crossed about 135 people at one point. Like to see some more faces, please. Wow, what an audience.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today.
Thank you, boss. Thank you. Thanks for a wonderful session, boss.
Thank you, everybody. Do note down Chanchal's email ID.
Okay, just one
Chat
question.
box.
Just one question, Mr. Bose. How are you? Fine. If I am certified as a lead auditor for the ISO 27001, okay, shall I be again recertified for this 27701?
27701 is a different standard, yes, but you don't need to do 27001 again.
Okay, so what is the process to be certified in this one? I'm Raouf, by the way.
We will be scheduling our programs. Do connect with us, and our calendar we had shown. An independent program for 27701 seems to be a need, and we are going to schedule a program. We will let you know.
Okay, if this is the lead auditor, okay, I am in this course.
Yes, it will be a lead auditor program. A lead auditor program by Exemplar Global Accreditation. CQ and IRCA does not have 27701 accreditation for approved.
It's okay, it's okay. And if there is another courses other than lead auditors, I mean that for to make more clarification in these courses, it's okay also.
That's wonderful. We will keep you informed, Mr. Mohammed, about other courses, like others have asked about lead implementer programs, etc. We will keep you in our mailing list.
Thank you so much, Major Boss. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in. The recording is available on YouTube for everyone to watch. Guys, be safe, stay healthy, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the good session.